Hey, what's up YouTube? This is Bearable IT. Today I'm going to show you how to do one of the most popular features in Salesforce for business users, and that is how to make a report, and it's going to be for beginners. I do want to caution that when making reports in Salesforce, you need to understand the objects and the fields in your Salesforce environment. You need to understand how those objects relate to other objects in your Salesforce environment. And finally, you need to understand how those translate into real-world business stuff. By doing those, making reports will become a little bit easier, and it will be a challenge if you've never done that before. This concept applies to any information system, not just Salesforce, but the more familiar you get with your objects in Salesforce, the better you're going to be at creating reports. With that said, let's go ahead and create a very basic report. So the first thing I'm going to point out is you should click on the Reports tab in Salesforce, and then click New Report. When you choose a report type, you just search for the object you're looking for. I'm going to cover report types a little bit more in depth in a different video. For now, we're just going to do a report based on opportunities. So here I have a report in front of me. This is showing me all the opportunities in my Salesforce environment that I have access to see. To cover the navigation a little bit, first I'm going to come over here to my left and click on the Show Fields panel. This is a list of every field that I have access to in this report for displaying on the grid view. It's just a reference guide. The Outline tab is where I have control over the actual layout of this report. For example, I can move the probability field higher so that it shows up as the first column. And I can also move the close date higher. I can very easily delete fields from the grid. And it gives me all the control I want for displaying the fields. And I can add new fields right here. This is also where you can group fields, and we'll get to that in a second. Next, we go to the Filters tab. One of the first things I do when I make a report is I make sure that there are no filters. So I show all opportunities, and the close date I'm going to set to all time. I don't want any predefined filters because it's very important when you're making a report that you understand what you're looking at, what is included in your report and what's not. So if you want to add a filter back in, you just click here and say Add Filter, Close Date. You can use a relative date like last week. And now it's very clear that I'm looking at opportunities with close dates last week. I want a little bit more data, so I'm going to say last 6 months. And that's how you do filters. Next, we're going to go to the Outline tab. And I'm going to group by a field just to make this report a little more visual. We'll group it by close date number 2 here so that I can keep my close date column in my report. Now notice that the date by default is just grouping by the day. I don't want that. So you can click on this arrow here and say group date by calendar week or month or something else. So once I clicked on calendar week, now I'm successfully grouping my records by calendar week. So this is called a summary report. It's now summarizing by my grouping. The next feature I'm going to show you in Salesforce is that you have 3 different little formulas here that you can add into your report. Anything you add here will only exist in your report. The first one I'm going to show you is the bucket column. This is a very quick and easy way of just bucketing different values in your fields. For example, I have a probability field on my opportunity, and I want to say if the probability is less than or equal to 50, then I'm going to call that unlikely. If it's greater than 50, then it's likely to happen. And I'm going to name my bucket likeliness. And you can actually add more of these if you wanted to, but I'm just going to keep it down to 2. And now I have a likeliness bucket. And you can see that probability being greater than 50 is likely and less than or equal to 50 is unlikely. Very useful tool. One other thing I'm going to point out on the navigation really quickly is the update preview automatically. I like to have this on unless it's going very slow. So the next feature I'm going to show you is the summary formula. You could click on this and then actually pick a field and say summarize, but if that field already exists, you can very quickly just move your mouse over to it, for example the amount, and then say summarize, sum. And now my report is going to show me the sum of all the amounts for each calendar week. The next feature is the row level formula. This is a very recent addition that only exists in Lightning, and it's a very useful one. You can have one of these per report at the time of this video, and what it's going to let me do is it's going to let me essentially write an Excel formula. So under functions, there's a function called the if statement, very popular, and it's going to tell you how to use it. So I can say insert, and then I just need to populate the parameters that it gave me. So I'm going to use an example of if my close date is in January, February, or March, then it's in quarter 1. Otherwise, it's not. So I'm going to name my field is in close date in Q1. And its output type is going to be a text. And so in order to do that, I'm going to look at my formulas here. Under date and time, I can see one called month. So I'm going to place my cursor where I want to insert it, and then click on month. And here it's going to describe to me what's going to happen. So if the month is January, then it's going to be 1, and February will be 2, etc. So if the month of, and then here you come to the fields panel, close date, insert. If the month of close date is less than or equal to 3, then yes. Otherwise, no. Click apply. And now I have a new formula. That is telling me if the close date is in Q1. So we've covered a lot. This is a very large portion of the reporting features in Salesforce. If you can get this down, you'll really have a good understanding of the Salesforce reports. There's a lot more to cover, but we'll cover that in a different video just for getting more advanced with your reporting. One final thing I'm going to show you is the add chart. This can give you a little view of what your data looks like. And you have the chart properties over here on the right, or you can make it a column or a bar chart or a donut. I'm going to choose a column. And you can take it one step further. If you want to use the stacked column chart, you need a second grouping. So what I'm going to do is move my likeliness field up to the group rows section. And then I'm going to come back to my chart properties and switch it to a stacked column. So we're not going to focus on the chart properties too much in this video. We'll cover that a bit more in the same video as dashboards. The chart functions a lot like it would function in a dashboard component. But at this point, I'm going to save it. And I'm going to put it in my private folder so no one else can see it. If you want to make it available to other people, you just select a folder that's available to others. And there's nothing left to do except run it. And that right there is how you make a report in Salesforce. Once again, I know it can seem intimidating. The more time you spend in Salesforce, the more familiar you get with your Salesforce objects and fields and the relationships, the easier it's going to come to you. And it will come to you with more practice. So if this video was helpful, please like it, comment below, and consider subscribing. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you in the next video.